What's up, everybody? Marla Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today we are looking at The Incredible Hulk, issue number 4. This issue came out in November of 1962. And today we are going to be looking at two stories today. Not just one, but two stories in this great issue. So we have the first one, The Monster and the Machine, and the second one, Mongu, a first appearance of Mongu, the gladiator from space. And so let's go ahead and look at this very classic issue of The Incredible Hulk. Remember, this is now going on to be Hulk's fourth overall appearance of The Incredible Hulk. And so this definitely is a key issue. So today's title in this first little story is The Incredible Hulk in The Monster and the Machine. And we got to also go credit where credit is due. This is brought to you by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, two of the main guys that basically ushered in the Silver Age of Marvel Comics. And the Incredible Hulk was one of the very first heroes that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby pretty much created here. And so now we're looking at the fourth issue here, and we see that Rick Jones has Hulk hooked up to this machine here. We've seen in the last few issues all kinds of different things of how the Hulk has been causing trouble with Thunderbolt Ross and the army, and we know that the Hulk is Bruce Banner and Rick Jones is the Hulk's pal. So Rick Jones has Hulk tied up to this machine, and this ray here is basically going to be pointed to the Hulk's head so that the Hulk can be transformed back to Bruce Banner. And we see that the rays have reached critical mass, and we see that Rick Jones is going to then pull a lever to change Hulk back to Bruce Banner. Now let's go back a little into the past here. Before all this takes place, we see from the very first issue, we didn't really see this, but this is basically from Betty Ross's point of view and how she met Bruce Banner, and we know from the past 3 issues that Betty Ross has a big crush on Bruce Banner here, and she's always thinking about him. She thinks back to the very first day when they were having this Gamma Bomb test. She met Bruce Banner and how much of a handsome guy he was, but then she recalls how he basically rushed out onto the testing site when they were about to launch the gamma ray bomb so that he could save this teenage boy named Rick Jones, and then he was caught in the crossfire of that gamma ray bomb, and that's how we know the full story. If you look back to issue 1 when I covered that, we see that Bruce Banner, his life was completely changed that day, and the Hulk has been basically causing mayhem ever since, and he's been basically a nightmare to Bruce Banner. We recall how the Hulk then tried to kidnap Betty Ross that time, and then we see just how much of a companion Rick Jones has been to the Incredible Hulk ever since. So we see here that Betty Ross is thinking about Rick Jones, Bruce Banner, and the Hulk. There has to be a connection. So she races to her father being General Thunderbolt Ross. And we see that Thunderbolt Ross has now created a new weapon to use on the Hulk. It's called, basically, as we're going to be seeing here, it's going to freeze him. It's the iceberg rocket. This iceberg rocket is used on this robot Hulk here. And the Hulk is basically, this fake version of the Hulk is launched into the air, and the rocket is launched, freezing this fake Hulk here, and the Hulk is this fake Hulk is then shattered to the ground. And that's basically how Thunderbolt Ross thinks he's going to defeat the Incredible Hulk. And then we see here that Betty Ross mentions Rick Jones, and she's like, I think there's a connection here, because Bruce Banner has not been seen for quite some time. I'm worried, Dad. Please, if we can just find Rick Jones, then we can finally figure out the connection he has with the Hulk. So we see that then Thunderbolt Ross here, General Thunderbolt Ross, is going to send out an all personnel, basically saying that there's a top priority to search out Rick Jones and arrest him. And so back at Rick Jones' house, or basically this is Bruce Banner's house, we see that Rick Jones is still in control of the Incredible Hulk. Hulk is like a mindless zombie, and he obeys the very thoughts of Rick Jones, and whatever Rick Jones thinks, Hulk does. We see that this army starts to gather around Bruce Banner's cabin here. So we see that um, basically Rick Jones tells the Hulk to go up, up, up into the air to get out of the way. We see that the army then grabs a hold of Rick Jones, brings him back to Thunderbolt Ross, and we see that Rick Jones is just not going to fess up on anything that's going on. He will not give a peep about anything he knows about the Hulk here. So Rick Jones is in big trouble here. So we see that Hulk is still flying through the air. He has just a supernatural ability to leap boundless miles. He notices that this school bus is caught on this train track here, and we see this train is coming. So we see that the Hulk actually saves the school bus from being hit by a train. We know that even though the Hulk is basically like a mindless brute, he also still has a little bit of Bruce Banner still in him. So then we come across this scene here where there's a movie set, and they're filming this. And this act, basically the film producer's like, look, you need to start screaming. And she does start to scream as the Hulk makes an appearance at this movie set, and he just starts destroying stuff. And this is the funniest part of this issue. He comes across this cafeteria where they're serving food, and he's like, food. And he just grabs the entire, it looks like a pot of whatever this is, probably some kind of soup, and just, eats the entire pot of soup. And then we see that then they try to surround Hulk. He then uses Thunderclap. Just funny stuff. Great drawings by Jack Kirby. King Kirby here. We see that then Hulk takes off once again, flying through the air. We see that he is going to answer the summons of Rick Jones, as Rick Jones is now needing help. And we see that Hulk then grabs a hold of Rick Jones from this army vehicle, and basically Hulk returns back to the cave where Rick Jones is going to allow the Hulk to change back to Bruce Banner. And now we're going to get back to the present. That was basically a little bit of a backstory, what's been going on. We see that Rick Jones is like, I'm not much of a scientist here, but hopefully this will work. So he basically pulls the lever, and we see that Hulk turns back to Bruce Banner here. And so we see that he had left the controls on for a little too long, so Bruce Banner is super weak here, and we see that Rick Jones has to basically roll Bruce Banner around for a long time. We see that then Bruce Banner gets the idea, I need to go back to being the Hulk here, and maybe this time I can have my own brain here inside the Hulk, and I can basically think and act as Bruce Banner but have the strength of the Hulk. So we see that the Hulk then returns, and that he starts to get up. Rick Jones thinks to himself, oh great, what have I done? Now the Hulk is going to destroy me here. I'm not in control of the Hulk anymore. But we see here that it worked, that Bruce Banner is in control of the Hulk, that the Hulk has Bruce Banner's own thinking here. And we see here that the Hulk is then going to then use his abilities to help mankind. He basically sees that there's this house that's on fire. This family's trapped in this cabin, and the Hulk is going to save this family from this burning fire, and he puts out the fire instantly. But upon seeing the Hulk, they start to panic here, and all the locals try to stop the Hulk, and they're shooting at him. I mean, a guy tries to save a family, and the first thing they do is try to shoot at him. So the Hulk ain't having any of it. He needs to go back to the cave to change back to Bruce Banner here. So that's exactly what he does. And now Bruce Banner is stuck in this dilemma here as we end this first story, and that is, will he lose control of the Hulk here? Will the Hulk try to crush mankind? And that's how we're going to basically end this first story. Now let's get into the second story, and this is where we're going to meet the Gladiator from outer space. but he really isn't going to be a gladiator from outer space, as we're going to soon find out. So we see that this jet starts to basically propel and takes place right in the midst of this city here. A bunch of folks gather around this, and out comes this gladiator called Mongu. And Mongu is now being on television here. The news media is putting this out, and Rick Jones gets Bruce Banner's attention here. They start watching the TV, and Mongu basically issues out a challenge here that whoever is the strongest of Earth's gladiators come and face Mongu, and if you can defeat me, then we'll leave this planet. But if you can't, and you can't, weld this 2-ton axe, then my own alien race will invade the Earth and take over. And so he's giving them a warning here. And so we see that Bruce Banner instantly figures out, you know what, I need to change into the Hulk so that Mongu can be defeated here. So that's exactly what happens here. We see that Hulk still has Bruce Banner's brain here. We see that upon arrival, we see that Mongu is going to be met up against the Hulk. But the Hulk realizes with Bruce Banner's brain that actually that Mongu has that 2-ton axe. It really isn't a 2-ton axe. It's actually made of cardboard. And this was a big full hoax here, as really this was the Soviet Union trying to take over the United States, as we're soon going to find out. As we continue this story, that there was this Soviet guy. He basically was in charge of controlling this robot. So it was a big full hoax. It was just a big hoax to try to lure Hulk into the scene. They want to take Hulk back to the Soviet Union so that then they can create their own Hulk army. And so Hulk basically tells Rick Jones, you need to cover your ears and get on the ground because I'm about to take out these guys. And that's exactly what he's going to do, as he easily takes down these guys. They even try to throw a grenade at him, and Hulk basically vaporizes the grenade. Then they're going to use this sonic gun, and it starts to work on the Hulk, but Hulk then forms a burrow under the ground and then grabs a hold of this Soviet guy. It's not looking good for the Soviets. Then they grab a hold of Rick Jones. They see that their plane is starting to come to get them, and so the Hulk is then going to throw this metal object at the plane. Just crazy stuff. Something that the Hulk would definitely do. Then Hulk, this is the funny part here, ties them up using their own belts and then places all these guys on the plane. And they said, you better go back to Vodka Land. And so Hulk definitely has a comedic style here, something we haven't seen in the last 3 issues. We see that then a bunch of the army come to realize that Hulk must have been the one to defeat Marduk, but we see that the army still does not trust the Hulk, and now they're going to continue to go after the Hulk to try to destroy him. And so that's how we end this issue. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the 2 small stories we had in this issue. Next time we'll be looking at issue number 5. And until next time, keep reading.